The Big Ten's expanding, man. They're adding 4 teams this year. And we were sitting around the office earlier today thinking, wait a second, they don't all just start at the bottom and have to work their way up. So if we set the current hierarchy in program terms of the Big Ten, where do these new teams fit in? Are they in Tier 1? Are they in Tier 4? Is there a Tier 5 in the Big Ten? Oregon, I think, is the best program that's entering the Big Ten. They're in the most powerful position. I think they're at or near the top of the conference. I think program-wise, you got a couple of them that have dominated for a while, Ohio State, Michigan. I think if you were to go 2024 moving forward, you can make the argument Ohio State's program may be in a little bit better spot than Michigan right now. But we don't know what Sharon Moore's Michigan's going to be. So let's just say you got a couple of them in Tier 1. Oregon's not taking a back seat to these teams, guys. Oregon is a Tier 1 team in the Big Ten as they enter this conference. The program is humming. They're coming off back-to-back top 10 classes. This upcoming class will be the best I think they've ever signed there. They are also leaning very heavily into that transfer portal. We're talking about Ohio State and how effective they've been. Oregon's right there with them. And Oregon's another one of those teams where I love to mention the can't culture, not to be confused with cancel culture. Can't culture is that kind of culture that if I say something on this show like Oregon could win the national championship this year, I'm going to have a healthy amount in the Can't Culture Society come at me and say, Dan Lanning can't win a title. Dan Lanning can't even win a playoff game. Dan Lanning can't even make it. Well, he hasn't made it. That's what I was talking about the other night, by the way. Not your program. Your current head coach hasn't won a playoff game, which I thought was pretty clear, but apparently it wasn't. Yes, he can. He just hasn't. Yes, they can. They just haven't. And so this coming year, you're going to hear it about Oregon. Doesn't matter how hot they start, and I'm telling you they're going to start hot because they got a very workable schedule. They are going to be on a roll, and you're going to have part of the country that's impressed with them, and you're going to have another part of the country that says, oh, they'll blow it in the playoff. They'll blow it in the Big Ten championship game if they get there. Or if Ohio State beats them October 12th in Eugene, which I would imagine is a game we'll be at if I have to look into October. People will say, can't win the big one. Dan Lanning can't win the big one. Well, all righty. I think his program is about as good as you'll find in the Big Ten in year 1 in the Big Ten. I have a lot of confidence in how they'll fit in. Now, someone I have just a little bit less confidence in right now is USC and Lincoln Riley. Where will USC fit in the Big Ten pecking order? I think they're like a Tier 3 program when they walk in there. Now, granted, I'm talking about maybe if you got Oregon, Ohio State Tier 1, if you called Michigan Tier 2, Penn State Tier 2, however you want to divide that up. It doesn't mean there's a ton of teams ahead of them, a ton of programs ahead of them. But USC is not on those levels. USC is not on the level of Penn State right now. They're not on the level of Ohio State. They're not on the level of Oregon. They're not on the level of Michigan as a program. I mean, I got concerns about them. I got concerns because I don't know if this is going to work. Lincoln Riley, to his credit, he made big moves on his defensive staff. And he brought in D'Anton Lynn, who was the DC down at UCLA, new linebacker coach, new DBs coach, but more importantly, he vocalized a new philosophy. Wonderful. I told you at the time, I loved everything he said. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know. If I believe that Ryan Day can reinvent his program, like I said a few minutes ago, I got to believe that Lincoln Riley can. I got to at least give him a shot, but it's tough to learn on the fly in a conference like the Big Ten. It's tough to try and find yourself physically in the Big Ten. That's the kind of conference that finds you and exposes you physically. And I'm not just talking about the big boys. I mean, you got a random Saturday where Purdue could make you look foolish. Wisconsin make you look foolish. If you're not up to par physically on the lines of scrimmage, there's no limit to how embarrassed you could be on a given Saturday in the Big Ten. So look, selfishly, I hope it's changing for the better. And here's what's weird about Lincoln Riley and USC. It's very rare to say a guy entering year 3 deserves a lot of patience. And you can decide how you want to decipher this or how you want to view this. I am looking at Lincoln Riley this year as being in year 1 at USC because I think that for better or for worse, what USC is moving forward, based on the changes he's trying to make, will be like a year 1 product. It's different. I mean, they are admitting we're going to do things differently. We're going to have things done a lot differently. We're going to think a lot differently. And he's 3 years in, but I think they've realized the way we used to do it, the way we tried to do it the first 2 years, that will not work in the Big Ten. And so we may fail doing it the new way, but we were definitely going to fail doing it that way. So you may see a lot of year one struggle about that program this year, even though it's in year 3 under current leadership. Doesn't mean it couldn't work. Just means I'd be surprised if it worked big time for him this year. Washington, same thing, man. Tier 3. I think it's terrible timing for them to be joining a new conference. The program's committed, though. That's very, very important because we haven't always said that about Washington athletics up there to this degree. They offered DeBoer a huge sum of money to stay, and when he was up there, I was listening to him with Adam Brenneman the other day. Brenneman went up there. He was ahead of the curve on this, man. Had a full sit-down with DeBoer, and Kalen DeBoer was talking about how many yeses he was getting at Washington and how all-in that administration was, president on down. And that doesn't change. Jed Fish is in there. He's going to enjoy that now. That doesn't change, but it's a tough time to be transitioning because of what just happened to the program. You're not losing, no one's losing 20 of 22 starters off a championship team and just rolling merrily along. I mean, talent factories like Georgia wouldn't roll merrily along. They've got to be smart, too, regarding talent. They got to be smart with the way they try and recruit. Washington cannot recruit like Oregon does. 2 totally different entities. So they've got to be a much smarter program with the way they approach talent acquisition. UCLA, probably close to the bottom of the barrel right now. As we came on the air, there have been multiple headlines just today about Chip Kelly looking to get out of there, trying to get NFL offensive coordinator jobs. It felt like 2023 was the show me year under them, to me. I thought they were a dark horse to make the conference title game. They started fast. They went 8-5. Was not a terrible year. They had a good defense. They kind of faltered down the stretch. Quarterback health was a concern. They aren't getting players like you need to get to compete in the Big Ten. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of continuity. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of synergy within the program and within the booster culture, the administrative culture, and you cannot stumble into the Big Ten. You can't. It's not going to work that way. So I feel like, however many tiers there are in the Big Ten, you got to put UCLA probably down there towards tier 4 right now, and just hope for the best.